Hi ladies, welcome to Saturate week 5. So you know that moment when you have a good hair day, you're having a really good makeup day, you even got a cute shirt on, you go to do your video and it actually is turning out pretty good until you get into the editing process and everything goes crazy at that point. And you're 4 days late in getting your video done, and then the entire thing crashes and you have to start all over. So hi, that's where we're at today. So you get me as real can get. No makeup, I haven't taken a shower, I'm still in my pajamas. Yeah, it's 6 p.m. when I'm doing this. That's my reel today. What's your reel today? Alright, well, I want to kind of take you, especially if you're just tuning into doing the Saturate videos, just real quick, want to hit kind of the bullet points where God has been bringing me through to be doing this Bible study with you. So really it all starts in Jeremiah 17, 7 and 8. It says, "But blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. He will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes, its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit." So my deepest cry was, God, I just want to be that tree planted by the water. I just want to be green all the time. I don't want to fear what comes at me. I want to be okay in every single season. We all go through seasons, but I always want to bear fruit. I always want the ability to bear your fruit so that I'm ready for harvest when harvest comes, and start the whole process over again. So I did a word study on living water, and that brought me to chapter 4 and verse 10. It says, "Jesus answered her, 'If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water.'" And then going down to verse 13, Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life." And then there's another verse, John 7 and verse 37. Jesus stood and said in a loud voice, "If anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, streams of living water will flow from within him." So what do we believe? We believe that Jesus is God's Son. Matthew 3:16 and 17. "As soon as Jesus was baptized, he went up out of the water. At that moment, heaven was opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and lighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, 'This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased.'" Jesus has been here since before time. In John chapter 1, 1 through 5, it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it." Jesus kind of alludes to this as well, in the fact that he has been here since before time. In John 8:58, Jesus says, "I tell you the truth. Before Abraham was born, I am." So this video is actually part 1, and we'll do part 2 next week. So for this week, we're going to talk about when Babylon captures Judah. And then next week, we're going to talk about what happens after Babylon captures Judah. So, we are going to go through quite a bit of history. Don't get scared. You know what? I did terrible at history. I did awful at history. I hated history. Why do we need to know what happened back then? Why can't we just focus on what's happening right now? Well, you know, as I've gotten older and a little bit more wise, I have figured out, finally, as my mom is probably chuckling, I have finally stopped fighting it and said, you know what? It helps us know who we are today when we look at who we as a nation or as the world or as Christians back then. To really understand, I mean, I really wanted to hit, especially the fiery furnace. Okay, that's where my first thought was when we were talking about belief. But to do that, we really have to go back and look and see, why is it so significant? We really need to understand that to be able to really appreciate what we're going to be learning about. Okay, so we're going to start all the way back at the beginning. Yep, at the very, very beginning. Genesis 1:1. God created the heavens and the earth. Alright, so I'm just going to bump through these really fast. I'm not going to read all of them, but I am going to give the references if you want to go and look them up this week. God created the heavens and the earth, Genesis 1:1. God makes man, Genesis 1:26 through 27. God tells Adam and Eve to multiply and fill the whole earth, Genesis 1:28. Man sins and God drives man out of Eden, that's in Genesis 3. Man continues to sin and becomes more and more corrupt. Through generations, many generations, God gets to the point where he wants to destroy everything. He hates that what man is doing. He's just wants to wipe it out. That is Genesis 6:5 through 7. But God finds one that he is pleased with, and God is pleased with Noah. Genesis 6:8. Noah, Noah's wife, their 3 sons, and their wives are spared. Genesis 7:1 through 5. They're able to open their doors after all the rain, and everything has dried up, and so God tells them to be fruitful and multiply. Okay, so after the flood, Noah plants a vineyard, drinks wine, gets drunk, gets naked, falls asleep. His son Ham sees his father and goes and tells his brothers that their dad is naked. The other brothers do the honorable thing, and without looking at their father, places a blanket over him. This is found in Genesis 9:18 through 23. Now there's more significance there, but we're just going to have to run through it because of time. So Ham has a son named Cush. I think I don't know. Anyways, I'm terrible with names, so bear with me because, you know, I gotta not be scared that I can't do this and then not do it, because that's kind of where I get afraid and then I just don't do it, but I need to power through. Okay, I do want to read Genesis 10:8 through 9. And again, Lord help me on all these names. Cush was the father of Nimrod, who grew to be a mighty warrior on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The first centers of his kingdom were Babylon, Erech, Akkad, and Kelna in Shinar. Okay, down here, when I look at Shinar, that's Babylonia. Okay, so Nimrod basically builds his kingdom as Babylonia. So let's get into that, okay? Chapter 11, 1 through 8. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As men moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar, which is Babylonia, or will be, and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city, with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make our name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the earth." Okay, now I'm going to read the rest of this part in the Message. God came down and looked over the city and the tower those people had built. God took one look and said, "One people? One language? Why, this is only a first step. No telling what they'll come up with next. They'll stop at nothing. Come, we'll go down and garble their language so they won't understand each other." Then God scattered them there all over the world, and they had to quit building the city. That's how it came to be called Babel, because there God turned their language into Babel. From there God scattered them all over the world. Okay, so let's go ahead, we'll go to verse 31, and that's in chapter 11 still. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, which was his son that died, and so now he is watching his grandson, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram. And together they set out from Ur to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. We're going to continue on chapter 12. We're going to read verse 1 through 7. The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all people on earth will be blessed through you." Verse 4. So Abram left, as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abraham was 75 years old when he set out for Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran. And they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Morah. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring, or seed, I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. Now we're going to go over to Kings, and we're really going to camp out there for quite a while. So go ahead and go to 2 Kings chapter 18. We're going to talk about Hezekiah, who is a king of Judah. And we are going to start in verse 3 and read through 6. He, which is Hezekiah, did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father David had done. He removed the high places, smashed the sacred stones, and cut down the Asherah poles. He broke into pieces the bronze snake Moses had made, for up to that time the Israelites had been burning incense to it. Hezekiah trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel. There had been no one like him among the kings of Judah, either before him or after him. He held fast to the Lord and did not cease to follow him. He kept the commands the Lord had given to Moses. So Hezekiah did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. You're welcome to go through and read the rest of this. Actually, I encourage you to go ahead and read the rest of this, but I gotta cut some stuff short or this will be a very long video. So Hezekiah gets sick, and the prophet Isaiah comes to him and says, hey, you're not going to make it, you're going to die, you need to get your house in order. And Hezekiah cries out to the Lord, prays to him. It says that Hezekiah wept bitterly. Before Isaiah had left the middle court, the word of the Lord came to him and told him to go back to see Hezekiah, tell him that he would heal him. Ladies, I want you to really focus here, because this is a big, huge point. Okay, so Hezekiah gets sick. He's told he's going to die. He weeps about it. God maybe changes his mind, sends Isaiah back and says, after 3 days you will be healed. And then the king of Babylon finds out that Hezekiah has been sick, and so sends letters and gifts to him, one of the ones that bring it, the messengers that bring those letters and gifts to Hezekiah. He shows them around, hey, here, this is my house and kingdom, and let me show you where everything is, and so then the Lord has something to say about that. So I want you to pay attention, because this is really big, actually. So Isaiah is like, what are those people doing? Or who are those people? And Hezekiah's like, oh, those are just people from Babylon. And Isaiah's like, what are they doing here? Why are they looking at things? Or what do they see? What are those people looking at? And Hezekiah's like, I showed them everything. So Isaiah says to Hezekiah, hear the word of the Lord. The time will surely come when everything in your palace and all that your fathers have stored up until this day will be carried off to Babylon. Nothing will be left, says the Lord. And some of your descendants, your own flesh and blood, that will be born to you, will be taken away. They will become eunuchs in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon. We're starting to see our story start firming up right here. Now we're going to go to chapter 21, just verse 1 and 3. Manasseh is 12 years old when his father dies, which is Hezekiah, and he becomes the king. Manasseh, he did evil in the eyes of the Lord, following the detestable practices of the nations the Lord had driven out before the Israelites. He rebuilt the high places his father Hezekiah had destroyed. I honestly just cannot even read out loud some of the things that he did. It just hurts my heart too much. Way too much. But I do want to hit this one part, and that is, so chapter 21, verse 10 through 15. The Lord said through his servant the prophet, Manasseh, king of Judah, has committed these detestable sins. He has done even more evil than the Amorites who preceded him, and has led Judah into sin with his idols. Therefore, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. This is big, ladies, pay attention. I am going to bring such disaster on Jerusalem and Judah that the ears of everyone who hears of it will tingle. I will stretch out over Jerusalem the measuring line used against Samaria, and the plumb line used against the house of Ahab. I will wipe out Jerusalem as one wipes a dish wiping it and turning it upside down. I will forsake the remnant of my inheritance and hand them over to their enemies. They will be looted and plundered by their foes, because they have done evil in my eyes and have provoked me to anger from the day their forefathers came out of Egypt until this day. When Manasseh dies, his son Amram becomes king. And then when he dies, his son Josiah, he becomes the king. He becomes the king at 8 years old. I seriously cannot imagine becoming king at 8 years old. I think that would be very scary. Alright, so we're going to jump to chapter 22:2 says, he, which is Josiah, he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord and walked in the ways of his father David, not turning aside to the right or to the left. When King Josiah had reigned for 18 years, so that meant that he was 26, he decides that he's gonna kind of remodel, I guess, to fix up the temple, which has been just devastated by his father, well, by his grandfather and father, I'm sure. And while they're there, or while the people were there fixing it up, the priest finds the book of the law in the temple of the Lord and gives it to Josiah to read. 22:11. When the king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his robes. He gave these orders to the priest and then some other people. Go and inquire of the Lord for me and for the people and for all of Judah about what is written in this book that has been found. Great is the Lord's anger that burns against us, because our fathers have not obeyed the words of this book. They have not acted in accordance with all that is written there concerning us. So the priests and all the other people go and speak with the prophetess. She says to them, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Tell the man who sent you to me, which is Josiah, this is what the Lord says. I am going to bring disaster on this place and its people, according to everything written in this book the king of Judah has read. Because they have forsaken me and burned incense to other gods and provoked me to anger by all the idols their hands have ever made, my anger will burn against this place and will not be quenched. Tell the king of Judah, who sent you to inquire of the Lord, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says concerning the words you heard. Because your heart was responsive and you humbled yourself before the Lord when you heard what I have spoken against this place and its people, that they would become accursed and laid waste, and because you tore your robes and wept in my presence, I have heard you, declares the Lord. Therefore I will gather you to your fathers, and you will be buried in peace. Your eyes will not see all the disaster I am going to bring on this place. Alright, we're gonna kind of skip ahead, and we're gonna go to chapter 23:24. Furthermore, Josiah got rid of all the mediums and spiritists, the household gods, the idols, and all the other detestable things seen in Judah and Jerusalem. This he did to fulfill the requirement of the law written in the book that the priest had discovered in the temple of the Lord. Nevertheless, the Lord did not turn away from the heat of his fierce anger, which burned against Judah because of all that Manasseh had done to provoke him to anger. So the Lord said, I will remove Judah also from my presence, as I removed Israel, and I will reject Jerusalem, the city I chose, and this temple, about which I said, there shall my name be. There's a little insert in my Bible that I want to read. It says, Josiah became king when he was only 8, and at the age of 26 led a dramatic reform movement. Yet, for all this wise king accomplished, the Lord still determined to punish Judah, as verse 26 tells us. Evil had become so deep ingrained that the best efforts of one good king could not root it out. In fact, as soon as Josiah died, Judah reverted back to its previous form. Alright, so that kind of ends us where we are headed to next, and that is during his reign, Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king. That's verse 36 of 23. And starting in 24, during Jehoiakim's reign, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, invaded the land. And Jehoiakim became his vassal for 3 years. But then he changed his mind and rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar. The Lord sent Babylonian, Aramaean, Moabites, and Ammonites raiders against him. He sent them to destroy Judah in accordance with the word of the Lord proclaimed by his servant and prophets. Surely these things happened to Judah according to the Lord's command, in order to remove from his presence because of the sins of Manasseh and all he has done, including the shedding of innocent blood, for he had filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, and the Lord was not willing to forgive. Hey ladies, so my video last night Hey ladies, so my video, oh Lord have mercy. Hey ladies, so my video last night cut out because my iPad died, and my cord is not charging for some reason, and so it's still dead. So I'm holding my phone, so I'm sorry about the jiggliness. I'm a shaker, so that's just kind of what you're gonna get at this moment. I am in a rush, that's why my face is all red. I'm rushing out the door, but I want to finish up this video really quick. So, because I didn't want to leave it just the way that it was, right? So next week we're going to be talking about Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And, but I wanted to kind of lead into that to see where it all ties, okay? So so Daniel chapter 1 verse 1 says, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. Okay, so that's kind of where we're headed in, is finding out what happens in Babylon after Judah is captured, okay? Something that I absolutely love, Beth Moore's quote, well, I'm quoting Beth Moore, and something that she said in her video, or in her study, Daniel. She says, we have an enemy who wants to return us to the places God has called us to leave. Remembering that God called all the way back, Abraham, calling Abraham out of the Babylonian area, right? And going into the promised land. Well, they're in the promised land. Israelites are in the promised land. And now God has allowed Judah, or not, And now God has allowed Babylon to capture Judah. And so that's where we're going to start next week. But I wanted to also quote a little bit more of what Beth Moore said, because it just touched my heart so much. The enemy is after every bit of ground, every bit of spiritual process that you have ever made. She goes on to talk about how, he's not just wanting to back you up. He wants to back you all the way back to the beginning and give you the idea that God has never healed you, that God has never changed you. She says, the enemy wants to back us all the way up to our greatest despair and our deepest stronghold. God had told his people, you will never come against an enemy you will not defeat as long as you keep one thing in mind, that I am your one and only, and there is no other God besides me. You start toying around with worship of false gods of the nations, and you will find yourself in the biggest mess of your life. And that is exactly what they did. After settling in Canaan, after all the warnings of what would happen, just as surely as any of us who have done the same thing, they turned to the worship of false gods and found themselves carried off into captivity. She goes on to say, when the Babylonians came and took the people of Judah captive, they were taking them right back to the place from which God had taken them to begin with. And he said, leave your country, your father's house, and go to the land I will show you. I want you to get into your head that their being taken captive back to Babylon was as if the entire tape had been put on rewound, taken all the way back to their beginning. It is more than you or I could possibly understand. But maybe, in a way, we spiritually can. Beth Moore says, and that you and I will find ourselves back all the way from where we started. I don't want to go back to where I started. In so many areas. Oh my goodness. Nope. I don't want to go back. This week, I know my mom likes to do the questions. I like her to do the questions. But this week, I really want to focus on our testimony. What has God pulled you out of? It can be anything from just, devastation, bad behavior, whatever. Let's see. Beth Moore then goes on to say, but I can assure you that is exactly what the enemy wants for us, is to take us all the way back. He wants to try to get it through our heads that we have made no progress at all. That is a lie. That is a lie. And I don't know how he's toying with you. I know the way he toys with me. But I want you to understand, he will not be satisfied until he's got you back in that old familiar pit. But the idea is to take us from our Canaan. But the idea is to take us from our Canaan, the land of our promise, and send us back to our Babylon, to our captivity. It's a lot to think on. It's a lot to chew on. I know we can do it. I don't want this to be a sad thing. I want us to know where it is that we never want to go back to, and how we need to keep our eyes focused on the Lord and not worship idols or whatever things in our lives to not change, because it's going to pull us back. It will. It always will. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. It's not going to happen. We have to do things differently to not get pulled back. Let's follow his laws. But I am looking forward to our discussion and see where God has brought us. And can I be honest? Next week we're going to see something that says, even if God takes us back, no, even if Satan takes us back, one thing remains: God is always with us. Even when his people got taken into Babylon, he was right there, giving favor, showing his wisdom, and pulling people to know who he was. He's an awesome God. I can't wait to go through more of that with you next week.